Hey everyone, it's Elliott, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'd love to talk about vibrato. Vibrato. So today I wanted to talk about vibrato. And the fact that it can be kind of a calling card or something very personal to your playing, as well as a signifier that you have control over your instrument. A lot of times beginners will play a bit literally, like... right? There's no vibrato on anything. I'm picking everything at the same volume. I'm picking everything for that matter, and not maybe going... being a little bit more deliberate with my phrasing. Now there's a lot to phrasing. It's bending, sliding, pre-bending, vibrato of different kinds. It's the whole, stew. And it's really helpful to think about one ingredient of that stew at a time, as opposed to like, oh, don't forget about all of phrasing. So if you like what you see here, get something from today's video, please comment, like, subscribe. Really helps me out. I really appreciate it. Also check out links in the description for my Patreon, as well as, if you have a fractal, links to all of my presets. Anyway, let's get back to it. So as I mentioned before, vibrato is a big deal as far as indicating that you have control over what you're doing. You could play slow with really good vibrato and it would come across like, yeah, this person is just confidently playing slow, they know what they're doing. And you could shred and they'd be like, ooh, they know what they're doing, they're shredding. But if you end with terrible vibrato at the end of a shred passage, well, they kind of know what they're doing. Vibrato's that big of a deal. How do we practice vibrato though? I would highly recommend going to basically each extreme. How ridiculous and how subtle can you make it? So the classical vibrato, or as I understand it, classical vibrato, where you're pushing and pulling the string. Right? Back and forth. So having this be your target note and kind of going above and beneath it and maybe hitting it every now and again is a bit more even of an approach than a lot of guitar vibratos, which is only focusing on going sharp. Something more like this. Bit less even sounding. That being said, again, that's the most subtle, so let's go to the most ridiculous, which is what I understand to be Zakk Wylde vibrato / 80s in general. Almost like you're strangling the guitar or something. This is a pretty fun vibrato to do with loads of gain, I suppose. It fits the style. And I really highly suggest to explore everything in between. Like, what about quick but not a wide variety in pitch? What about slow, but a wide variety in pitch? Kind of feels like we're nauseous or something, but just to cover all your bases so you really have a control of what you're doing. And also by doing this, you're really just working out your calluses, honestly, and your overall control of the instrument because you're going to all the extremes. So something to watch out for is what I mentioned earlier. Like if we're, doing a regular vibrato and going sharp, not to bend, basically, and then go sharp. And have everything just be incredibly sharp sounding. You can do it, it would just be maybe a bit nervous, a bit anxious sounding. I notice it the most in my playing on the high G, B, and E strings, for instance. Right? If that's my root, it's going to be a little nervous sounding if I'm bending so sharp like that. It will sound all right though. If it's on the minor third, kind of in between minor and major thirds. Same goes to an extent for the 5 and the flat 5. Right? It's not egregious. The ear's not going to be like, oh, what's going on? If you're in a bluesy context. Another way to make sure that you're not necessarily going sharp and staying sharp is to actually bend from a half step below and then use vibrato. This might not always be the best method because sometimes, instruments are different. If I switched from the hard to this to the silver sky or something like that, they all behave differently. They all fight differently. And so my bends might be a little out of tune for a second, and I might not want to rely on that technique at that moment, at least not for, 20 minutes or something, until I can get used to that instrument. Also, sometimes we got to realize, like, hey, am I bending in tune, or do I need to, start working on that again? But once you have your bends super, great and in tune, and your vibrato super great, then you're really dangerous. Another thing to consider is, are you bending in time? You don't have to, not everyone does, and they still sound fine. But it's something to consider, and it'll only give you more control if you can bend like... I don't know, that last one was a bit ridiculous, but you know what I mean. It'll only give you more control, and it'll only give you more awareness of like kind of where you're sitting in the beats, depending on what kind of tempo the song you're playing over is. Let me try that sentence one more time. It'll give you awareness of your vibrato while playing songs that are at different tempos. So again, we have the subtle pushing and pulling of the string, the super intense wrist shaking vibrato, and we have using a metronome and doing it, all of those with eighth, triplets, 16th notes, etc. Afterwards, you'll definitely notice your calluses are going to get much deeper. So give these kind of vibrato exercises a shot. And actually let me know in the comments, if you spend like 15 straight minutes on vibrato, let me know how it felt at the beginning and at the end, if you felt like you had more control. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see y'all next week.